So I saw an interesting stat this morning that if every woman who was on wait lists to see a gynecologist in the UK stood shoulder to shoulder, that it would span 191 miles. 1 in 3 women has a severe gynecological condition. Like 1 in 3, it's huge. When we started out, people were, there's this fear mongering. Do you know what's really scary?
Not knowing.
No, when you're devoid of any options. The really scary part is when they go, sorry, there's really nothing left that we can do. That's scary. It's this unspoken truth that you have to do this sort of calculation in your mind as to how long you've got to either meet someone, settle down, procreate, do all the things that you used to think you'd have done by the time you were 25.
I personally, since I was about 26, have felt incredibly scared about my biological clock. It feels like it's just ticking in the back of my head at all times. I want to hear your interpretation on egg freezing. What are your thoughts on this as an industry?
I think mine are actually a little bit controversial.
This is a little heads up. In this episode, we will be touching on fertility challenges. If this topic is close to home, we totally understand if you need to sit this one out or proceed with care. This has been an interview in the pipeline, I would say, for about 1.5 years. I can't even remember what the event was. Do you remember where we were?
Yeah, we were at a law firm event. We were at a firm event where I was speaking about God knows what.
Yeah, I honestly can't even remember either. But what I loved about the way that you spoke was it was a really interesting balance of incredibly to the point, quite almost like brutally honest, but hilarious. Like you could tell you were unbelievably determined and believed in the business that you were doing, like would have bet your life on the business idea. But I think the way that you spoke about leadership, how you speak to your employees, I found just really fascinating because it's something that I struggle with so much, like the people pleaser kind of like business leader vibe. But I think that what you nailed was having a sense of humour within that and like being quite direct. So let's chat about Hertility, why it exists. In fact, let's start with an elevator pitch. For anyone that doesn't know what it is, because this, just for anyone listening, when you go to raise money, everyone's like, the 2-minute pitch, the elevator pitch, it's apparently really important.
Yeah, I'm always like, how big is your building? How long can this elevator go on for?
18 floors.
So you're in a skyscraper and the lift breaks.
Yeah. And now we have 15 minutes for me to explain my business idea.
So I think, so Hertility was born out of a need for preventative, personalised reproductive health care across a woman's hormonal lifespan. So we provide advanced diagnostic testing, telemedicine, treatments, clinical services, prescriptions for all women from menstruation through menopause. And the approach that we have was to democratise the fertility market by making affordable, accessible, but premium healthcare for all women, irrespective of their life stage. So egg freezing or egg tracking or egg monitoring or diagnostics. So we can diagnose over 18 conditions, including PCOS, within 1 week with 99% diagnostic accuracy. And we can also assess fertility decline and the onset of perimenopause and menopause.
I mean, it's so cool to see someone pioneering the health space for women, particularly fertility, because it actually just blows my mind how many of my friends have bizarre symptoms when it comes to their periods, fertility. Like, I remember myself even like 5 years ago thinking I had polycystic ovaries and I was getting this scan and they told me I didn't have the things. And then, 6 months ago, someone said, oh no, actually that's not even how they diagnose. The fact that in 2020, they weren't even able to tell me what was going on. It just blows my mind, the lack of research and the lack of support that female reproductive organs and like just that entire research space, it's bizarre. So it's amazing to see Hertility taking off. And I mean, you've raised over £20 million of...
29.
Is it 29?
Yeah.
Holy hell. I mean, it's just so needed and it's so impressive. So for people who don't understand how the products work or how they would interact with Hertility, it's basically order online, isn't it?
So what we wanted to do was to remove, by having a digital interface, you're removing the need to have an extra hurdle. So I saw an interesting stat this morning that if every woman who was on wait lists to see a gynecologist in the UK stood shoulder to shoulder, that it would span 191 miles. So there are 760,000 women on wait lists to see a gynecologist. And you can guarantee that number is doubled when you take into consideration the people who've just gone, okay, I'm probably fine, or who've been told it's just how the way it is. It's just part of being a woman, or been put on a pill so that they don't go on a wait list. So the idea was born out of a need to say, we want to be able to circumvent the need to have extra steps. It should be accessible in a way that fits into our life, that fits into our busy schedule. So how the journey works is that every single person does an online health assessment. And in that health assessment, we ask loads of questions about lifestyle factors, about menstrual patterns, about any kind of thing, any data point that would have a relevance in terms of obtaining a diagnosis. So anything that would give us a clue as to your overall well-being. Because the thing is, at a private fertility clinic, you will go there if you're at the point of saying, okay, there's a problem. Usually people will go to a fertility clinic if they think they might be infertile. There's no effort by that clinic to say, how do we help you get pregnant naturally? How do we uncover the root cause of what's going on? How do we see, is there an issue? Is there a structural issue? Is it you? Is it your partner? And that's the problem I see with that. It's such a reactive space. And also, they will only test one hormone. They'll test your AMH, they'll test your egg reserve, or else maybe two.
I was going to say, that's what I've had tested. It's the only thing they've ever...
And it's not the only indicator in your reproductive health. So AMH, to give a determination of your egg reserve, it's just not a single determinant of your overall fertility, because there could be any underlying issues. Like I say, there could be structural issues, there could be genetic issues, there could be any number of things. You could have polycystic ovaries, which is not going to give you, it's going to give you an elevated number of elevated AMH
of course,
as well.
Because you're producing more, there's more follicles.
Exactly. So what we do is we will test up to 10 hormones alongside a really clear picture of what your lifestyle factors are. So the online health assessment, in that health assessment, we've coded over 54,000 clinical scenarios within that, because we wanted it to be for every woman. So you're asked, what brings you here? Is it that you're actively trying to conceive, you're planning future babies, you have symptoms? Some people don't, they just are crippled with conditions or symptoms. You think you're perimenopausal or you're menopausal. So we've really stratified the archetype of customer to say, we're here for you, and depending on the answers to your questions, you'll be brought down a different route, and we'll test different things for you. So the test, once you've done your health assessment, you'll be sent a personalised test. It usually arrives at your house the next day, and you test on the third day of your period. You test on the third day of bleeding. So that is the way to make sure that there is consistency and validation in terms of the accuracy of the results. So we've done over 22 clinical trials in order to maintain and to obtain a level of accuracy and confidence in the methodology of testing, as well as then the results that we get, which is where we now know we have over 99% diagnostic accuracy, which is, by the way, no one else in the whole world has ever done this. This is not to toot my own trumpet, because it's not my trumpet to toot, it's our team's trumpet. That, I just don't think can be underestimated enough, especially in a world where women are still just told, just go on the pill. And that is not healthcare. And so that is the sort of key determinant then to say, if you do the test and then you send it off to our accredited labs, your results come on a beautiful health hub. We've got a lovely app that we've developed, which is really intuitive. We call it the Pocket Gynecologist, but that kind of sounds a bit creepy. Like this.
Kind of don't mind it though.
Yeah, like that. There's something there for you to log and symptom track and monitor and track your periods without your data being shared. And I think that that's really important, to know that your data is as secure and as safe as possible, but then book any onward next steps. So the report that we put together, we've put an awful lot of thought into how we distill information. And I think one of the key things we want to do is not insult women's intelligence, to say you should be able to be given information in an easy to understand language that explains what hormones we tested, why we tested them, what it means for you in the context of your overall life, and furthermore, what you can do to maybe alleviate symptoms or to improve things. And I think that's a really important first step. In fact, that is the single most important step that any woman should take, is doing this diagnostic test, because it is literally 10 times more comprehensive than a private fertility clinic, but 90% more cost effective than a private fertility clinic. And then the alternative is you wait to go infertile on the national health system, because that's basically what it tells you to do. Because
it also just blows my mind, like, sorry if this is a TMI, but I have done, because I've had some really weird symptoms in my life, and I had the same. It was classic, go on the pill, you're 14, just block all the symptoms. But I have had some hormone tests done, and I had really high testosterone, but no one could ever tell me, okay, go and do this test, or this means that, or no one was proactive enough to say it would be really helpful for you to learn more about what's going on with other elements within your hormones. And when you understand how much, God, I hope I say this right, your endocrine system, right?
Endocrine, yeah.
Shit. is in control of your mood, your energy, your
everything.
Literally everything. Yeah. It's arguably the most important thing for us to have a clear picture of. And yet most of us are going through being like, when are we ovulating? What day is it? Or like I messaged my...
How do you say endocrine?
Oh my God. I mean, honestly, that's the thing, right? It's like at school you're taught how to put a condom on and that's it for sex education. Yeah. Nothing around hormones or female health. And I just think that it should almost be that this is funded by the government and any woman can get access to it, because I think there's a huge amount of underlying health conditions that we probably could prevent or be at least trying to support our systems better if we knew, rather than just waiting for things to get so bad before like actually trying to seek professional or medical help. But can we just hear the founder story for anyone who either doesn't have a business or doesn't know the context for the sort of elevator pitch or going to get funding? Is that it's really important for the founders to be able to articulate the reason why they started the business and to give, I guess, an emotional connection between there's obviously a really clear business idea and financial opportunity by starting whatever your business is, but to be able to communicate the reason why you as founders are the best people for the job, it always comes down to a personal element. So your twin sister, Helen, is an amazing scientist, and Natalie, as well as your other co-founder. Can you share the story, either your personal, your twin sister, or all three of you, and how you came together to be the perfect team to start this business?
I did a master's in medical law. And then I specialised in venture capital and M&A. So I was working at a large US law firm called Cooley, doing lots of kind of venture deals and working kind of all day, all night, kind of corporate slog in the most extreme sense. And I had access to private medical health care, loads of benefits. I had access to so many different ostensible benefits for my health, and yet really nothing at all for my health. So nothing in relation to reproductive health, hormones, fertility, nothing at all. That's seen to be just, you don't talk about it. And I think it's one of the things that is one of the most common things in the corporate world or in the working world, is that it's this unspoken truth that you have to do this sort of calculation in your mind as to how long you've got. You've worked so hard, you've come this far. How long do you have to either meet someone, settle down, procreate, do all the things that you used to think you'd have done by the time you were 25, which the world has kind of moved on from there. And I think from my perspective of working in that firm and seeing the impact that it had on my reproductive health, alongside me, the fact that my identical twin sister is a tenured professor at University College London. She's lecturing masters and medical students about prenatal genetics and fetal medicine, which is what she did her master's and her PhD in. And she has access to every fertility expert, every gynecologist. She has access to her, her coworkers and colleagues. And those are the people who are the experts and pioneers in this field, whether it's in fertility or in reproductive health or gynecology or in genetics. And yet she had the exact same questions of, am I fertile? How long have I got? And her colleagues kind of told her, look, Helen, you're baby, reproductively speaking. And she said, no, actually, reproductively speaking, I'm geriatric, because that's the term that's been given to a mother that's over 28.
28?
28.
I thought it was 35.
No, they
Good
moved
Lord.
it. No, they made it later, but it's 28 is beyond 28 was deemed to be a geriatric mother. And so the question again is that she was consistently told, just freeze your eggs, just freeze your eggs. She's like, I don't want to freeze my eggs. I want to see what my egg reserve is like. I want to know what I'm working with in terms of my own reproductive limitations. And then alongside her was Dr. Gatroy. Natalie Gatroy is an ovarian biologist, and she was assessing ways to preserve women's fertility prior to cancer treatment. And again, the question arose for her is, it's all women that want to be able to assess ways to preserve their fertility, not just women who are having cancer treatment. And I think for the fact that the three of us had access to either care or specialised individuals, but zero access to tangible steps for ourselves, was the real wake-up call to say that there's something missing here, particularly when I was, helping other companies raise loads of money and, doing these deals for these companies, which in my mind, they had, as a fraction of the intellectual acumen of my sister. And I thought, this is something that we should be bringing this. We should be, without sounding bad, we should be commercialising this in a way that makes it tangible for women, because it's not available on the National Health System, nor will it ever be, because it's too expensive to be. It's too detailed, it's too difficult, and it would never be done. Helen is the CEO. She is the genius of all of the clinical and diagnostic aspects of it. The way her mind works is fascinating. And so we often, the CEO, we call her Chief Enthusiastic Officer, because she's always got a new idea. She's got a new thing that's going to help propel the world of healthcare for women. And honestly, the thing that I find the hardest is that as her sister and as the VC lawyer, but I haven't been able to get more money for her to be able to help more lives, because that's the only bottleneck. That has been our only bottleneck. And I think of the billions of women whose lives could be improved if they had access to the healthcare ideas that she has just written on paper. I would love to be able to help catapult her ideas to be able to really change the world.
Also, what an amazing dynamic where your almost sole purpose is to prop her up and get her money to make, these products more accessible.
And I think traditionally people will always say, like, who's the smart one? Who's the bad one? And we're like, we're both smart, we're both bad. And people will always kind of pitch you against each other, but we have such distinct skill sets that we just complement each other. And same with Natalie. Natalie complements as well. So Nat's COO, so she deals with all of the sort of operational things that we don't have the brain space or the ability for. So it does work. It's we're a perfect triangle that works really well.
And so for someone that doesn't maybe understand from testing to implementation, can you just explain that?
Yeah, so I think what's missing really in healthcare is the fact that women are sort of left adrift. And even if you do get a blood test, how do you interpret it? How do you really recognize what you need to do next? And one of the things we were dedicated to from the very beginning with Hertility was not just provide test results, because there's so much in it. There's so many next steps that you don't want to be left to Google what you do next, because all you're going to get is whatever clinic has paid the most in terms of SEO. For any individual, they'll have a really comprehensive health report about all of their hormones, what we've tested, what it means for them, but also then next steps in the context of what they said that they were there for. So if there is something that needs further investigation, firstly, all of the advanced test now comes with a clinical results review call. So everyone gets that additional clinical guidance, so they can have a call with someone to walk through their results and then next steps. And we really made this to be as handholdy as possible, because we really know that this is a minefield. And in terms of the information, people might receive information they weren't expecting. So we have counsellors. People might have get a diagnosis of a condition that's a metabolic condition. So they're heavily impacted by your nutrition. So we have nutritionists. And so I think the steps that someone can take, there's one story of someone who found out that she was 28, but she had the egg reserve of someone who was 44. And she was in primary ovarian insufficiency, so early menopause. And the number of people who go into early menopause is actually 1 in 100. It's not that small a number. The common conditions that impact women are so prevalent. So it's 1 in 10 for endometriosis, 1 in 10 for PCOS, 1 in 3 women has a severe gynecological condition. Like 1 in 3, it's huge. And so I think the fact that we're so conditioned to normalize it, oftentimes when you help someone and you give them the proactive steps to be able to do something about it, that can genuinely change the direction of their life for the better. So I think when people see that they can take tangible next steps, or they go through a journey that helps them to conceive, there's a lot of gratitude in that.
Well, I think the point you just made is really interesting, because say I was in that situation and I found out tomorrow that I had I was in, is it perimenopause? God, it's so bad how little I know about this.
But you're not alone. We walked around, we did a vox pop to say, can you name 3 Kardashians? And everyone's like, yeah, sure, Kim, whoever and however. That goes to tell you my knowledge of Kardashians. But then we said, now can you name 3 parts of your reproductive anatomy? And there was an awful lot of feet shuffling and looking at the ground. And that'll tell you, this is the organ. Your uterus organ is that brought you into life and will bring another life into life. It is the way we are created. And yet, this is why we're in such a crisis point in terms of our education and our prioritization of the information we feed ourselves with. Because we will watch endless amounts of shite and fuel ourselves full of total nonsense and have any amount of information at our fingertips more now than ever. And yet when it comes to the thing that impacts our skin, our mood, our weight, our metabolism, our sex drive, our fertility,
we're like, what's a fallopian tube?
What exactly? Oh, did you get a fallopian tube to work today?
Yeah. What is an egg? It's really ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you are based in UK or Europe, Hertility have very kindly given us 15% off anyone in the Curve community. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I would actually love one of those advanced tests, if you use Curve15 in the checkout, you'll get 15% off. And I can tell you, as someone who has done a test, I'll share what happened and what my experience was at a later date, but can highly recommend. So follow the link in the podcast show notes. And if you would like the Hertility code, it's Curve15 to get 15% off. And back to the podcast. I would love to talk about investing in your fertility, stepping aside from tests and understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, anyone, whether you're a man or woman, whether you've got this or that, there is always a business that is trying to make money off of something that you're scared about. And I think that a huge amount of women between the ages of 26 and 39 thinking about the fact that they both want a career, they would also perhaps maybe like to have kids. And I personally, since I was about 26, have felt incredibly scared about my biological clock. It feels like it's just ticking in the back of my head at all times.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was living in Sydney, I looked up egg freezing, and I just haven't been in a position where I've had $10,000 since then. And look, maybe if I'd reprioritized and I hadn't invested in a property, or I hadn't done this, I could have had my eggs frozen, but it's been one of those things that's been on my list for years. And I just haven't felt like I've had the money to do it. And yeah, as you say, like whether it's Googling something or speaking to a friend or whatever, or you go into an IVF clinic, the way that they speak to you about your fertility is really scary. I want to hear your interpretation on egg freezing and whether or not you feel it's a valid investment. Is it just blanket across the board? It's a great investment. You should do it early. Like, what are your thoughts on this as an industry?
I think mine are actually a little bit controversial.
Great.
Because I think that there is such an overestimation on maybe the success rates of egg freezing. And I think that it is a form of insurance, but it is not a guarantee. And I think that a lot of the people who are being pushed towards it, it is a societal pressure. It is a push, it's a drive to say, you should be doing this. Like, we should be doing so many things. Like, how could we not be doing more? You are expected to do more, be more successful, have a job, have a baby, travel the world, look gorgeous. And I think that these are the pressures that are put on women all the time. And egg freezing is just one of them. If you can track and monitor your egg reserve, so you do a fertility test every year, and if you saw that you were getting to a point that you thought, well, I'm nowhere near having a partner or nowhere near this point, then maybe think about it. Which is slightly contrary to the idea that you should do it as young as you can because, you have a higher egg reserve. The reality is that women need to become accustomed to the idea that they have limitations on their reproductive lifespan. And that's the thing. Everything now has a trigger warning. Disclaimer. I give webinars and seminars and I have to have a trigger warning at the beginning. Like, trigger warning, life's not going to give you a trigger warning. But this is the greatest trigger warning you'd get. If you can actually know and assess your ovarian reserve and assess your hormones, that's the biggest preparation you could make. I think that if you knew that you had a limitation, you might approach things differently. Whereas if you think, got those eggs on ice, I'm grand for a long time, maybe you don't make the right decisions. Maybe you do. It's actually a really tough one to call. But I know that for me, the age that I would get to where people are still saying, oh, you should freeze your eggs, I would say, do you know what? Consider alternative routes. Consider fertilizing those eggs if it's in any way possible. Consider the alternative
When you say
things.
fertilizing, do you mean freezing an embryo?
No, I mean that there's so much of an emphasis on saying freeze your eggs instead of saying, like, for a lot of people, they're in a relationship. They're in a stable relationship. They have a partner. And then they should say, well, should we fertilize these eggs? Should we actually go for it? Should we try and have a baby at some point? Or should we know that the point of time that we're going to plan ahead? Because of the potential limitations of this, because of the potential heartache. And I always put it in the context of my own experience. So I have 2 daughters, Saoirse and Aoife. I was 35 when I had Saoirse and 36 when I had Aoife.
Shit, so you did it a year apart?
Yeah.
And was that because of...
That was because I tested I did a fertility test in January and then I did a fertility test in March, and my egg reserve had dropped in that 3 months more than I personally expected it to have dropped in 3 years. And I said, okay, I have 2 hard decisions here at 35, or then sort of 35 and a half. I have 2 hard decisions. One of them is to say, this is not a good time for me to have a baby. I've got a very, very full-on company. We're just starting out. We're, in the middle of getting our regulations. We're doing all this stuff. You think the corporate law firm hours were bad. This was next level. And I thought, well, one of them is to put it off and potentially risk maybe having to have IVF. The other is to have a baby much sooner than I want to. So I'd have 2 under 2. And I chose my heart. They're both hard decisions. And sometimes I think the reality is it's a rock and a hard place decision, and make the decision that you prefer. Do you prefer the rock or do you prefer the hard place? And that's not to scare, but it's to say, if we don't become accustomed to the realities of our biological limitations, then we're going to have a hard time. Inevitably, we're going to have a hard time in some respect, maybe.
Okay, I know every single situation is completely different, but let's just use me as an example. I've thought about the egg freezing investment for probably 8 years. I haven't done it.
But why haven't you done a fertility test? I'm genuinely curious why. To me, I cannot understand why every single woman wouldn't do it.
Well, now I'm obviously going to.
But the thing is, here's the thing that baffles me. The UK is one of the only places in the whole world where people will wait to get sicker rather than pay for healthcare, because they have a national right to free healthcare. And so there's this ingrained belief that you have this God-given right to free healthcare at all costs. And the cost is often so high. So people will sit on a wait list to see a gynecologist for 2 years. They'll sit along 760,000 women to see a gynecologist. And along that time that they've waited, they've slowly become worse. Their condition has worsened. Their life has been destroyed. Their relationship has been impacted. This is the thing I can't understand about the healthcare system here, is that people could get help. People could use our service. And yet there is this hesitation. And yet people go, oh, I shouldn't have to pay for that. But if you think about it, why shouldn't you have to pay for years and years? Oh, like Helen and Natalie, they've had over 20 years of expertise. We've conducted over 22 clinical trials. We've spent 7 years perfecting and dedicating ourselves to the data to uncover and radically reduce diagnosis times for conditions for women. And yet the perspective women have here is that, no, I shouldn't have to pay anything for healthcare, even though we have democratized the fertility market to the point where our margins are very little. We actually, if you thought we were a company that wanted to make money, part of the reason why we struggled to get investment is that we didn't charge women more, because we wanted to make it affordable and accessible. The reason clinics charge £2,500 to test 1 hormone or 2 hormones, and we charge £249 to test 10, plus align it with clinical expertise, a consult with a gynecologist, all of these different things, that the step that you haven't taken, even though you're kept awake at night, you hear the ticking in your head, That's the thing that I would love to know. Why aren't women taking that step?
I don't think it's not that I don't want to spend £250. It's actually not that. I just don't think that I think that I've been ignorant to prioritizing, or also perhaps scared of what the answer will tell me.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's not a barrier of like finances. It's not, it's purely because I haven't prioritized it. And also I only have just started seeing someone. I've been very single for a long time. And so I've thought, if the answer is not what I want, or it's scary, what do I do?
Well, then what do you do if in 3 years' time you can't do anything about it? That's the thing that I can never, again, grapple with. I get this whole idea. And for a lot of the time, when we started out, people were, is this fear-mongering? Do you know what's really scary?
Not knowing.
No. When you're devoid of any options,
yeah.
The really scary part is when they go, sorry, there's really nothing left that we can do. That's scary. Finding out proactively and having enough time or having enough ability to do something about it, that's emancipation. That's not exploitation. And that's the thing that people need to get their heads around. Because when it comes to this, people often say, is it exploiting women to be able to help them find out about their reproductive? No, it's not. It is absolutely providing them with the reproductive autonomy and the empowerment to say, hey, we're going to arm you with everything you need, because this is going to be a war. We're going to give you all of the armor you need. We're going to prepare you to defend your body and to be as prepared as you possibly can for the big bad wolf that is the world. And we're going to help you as much as we possibly can. That is the greatest gift that anyone can have. And often if we go to any other country in the world, they're like, oh, please, can you bring this to Australia? Please, can you bring this to America? Please, can you bring this to... And yet in the UK, should be on the NHS.
I actually think it's quite similar to the idea of people not doing anything about their finances, even though they know.
100%.
There's like this, like sort of underlying fear and worry, and like it really does take something to be going on for you to actually take action. And I think for me, because all I've thought is the only option is get your eggs frozen, I've just avoided, because I know that's not a financial position I'm in to be able to make that decision. So I think that it's just a wider education piece around knowing your financial situation or knowing your fertility and the state in which everything is at gives you options and the chance to do things differently. But because we think, oh, you need millions of dollars to invest, therefore why bother learning about my finances? Or you need £10,000 to even think about improving your fertility, people just avoid because they think they can't do anything. And I think that's probably more of the issue.
And if you think of it, like when you spell it out like that, if you don't proactively do something and you do then inevitably, if you do need fertility intervention, what do you think that's going to cost? The cost of fertility intervention is so much more. I met a woman who said she remortgaged her house to pay for it. She said, oh my God, I wish fertility existed when I was trying to have children, because I had to remortgage my house because I spent so much on the entire process of multiple rounds of IVF, and that sort of process that nearly destroyed her life. And I think that if people could see the potential money that they would spend if they don't proactively assess, then they would definitely reassess. And I oftentimes think that the approach, even in terms of the NHS, is, you know, the way that the NHS says you have to be actively trying to conceive for 2 years before. That's like saying, wait, we see you've got a tumour, but let's just see how big it gets before we assess you for anything else. Like, it genuinely is, knowing that your 88% of a woman's egg reserve is gone by the age of 30, and yet they're saying, just keep waiting. Just wait. We'll put you on a wait list. It's actually negligent.
At what point would you say, because I love what you said about get the full picture of what your fertility looks like before you make a decision as to what your next steps are. And obviously the whole point of fertility is that you point out what they could do and the practical next steps. For someone who hasn't done the test, obviously go do it. But in what situation would you say investing in getting your eggs frozen is a good investment? Like if you were to spell out, if this is you, then yeah, maybe consider it.
So we do provide I'm doing myself a disservice here by not saying everyone should go get their eggs frozen, because we provide this service the whole journey, we do a whole egg freezing pathway. So we've catered for people who want to do it. But the first step is always to obviously assess your hormones, assess your egg reserve, to do the test. I wouldn't dream of saying that someone should ever walk into a clinic and say, I want to freeze my eggs without having done a fertility test.
Because we all think that it's based on age.
But it's such a variable. Look at your skin. Think about your eggs in the same way that you think about your skin. There are some 30-year-olds that look 35. There's some 40-year-olds that look 55. And it's all dependent on our lifestyle factors, our exposures, the sun damage, our genetics.
There's also predisposition, right?
Yeah, there's so many different things that can impact how your skin looks, and your eggs are no different. So what have you been exposed to? Is it a genetic thing? Is it a lifestyle thing? Are you a vapor? Do you drink loads? These are the things that will impact your eggs. These are the things that have, and that's why I think having this health assessment that we do, it really seeks to uncover what are the key determinants in terms of giving you an overall picture of your reproductive health, not just your egg reserve. I think the reality is that there's no perfect situation. And one of the things that we've recognized is that no woman is the same. No woman at all in terms of their exposures or their lifestyle or like any conditions they might have. No woman is the same. We all bleed in different ways, experience pain in different ways, have different symptoms. One of the key things that we recognize as well is that through our data, so we've done a health assessment data of over 1 million women. And one of the most common symptoms is anxiety. So that goes to show menstrual health and mental health are inextricably linked. And some of the key symptoms that we see...
Sorry, quickly. Do you mean if you're anxious, you less fertile? Is that
no, absolutely not. Please do not clickbait me on that one, because that would be I would die in the comment sections.
Is there any anxiety going on?
No, but the point is that we're listening to women who are worried. They're anxious, whether it's about their job or about their fertility or about the condition that they might have. Anxiety is a huge impact, or is a huge symptom that we see across women, and I think that can't be underestimated. That we have stressful lives. I think one of the other things that we see in the data is that when people, so one of the questions is, have you ever been diagnosed with something? Yes, I've been diagnosed with something. No, I haven't. But I suspect something's up. Mm-hmm. In 96 or 86, it's an unbelievably high number of women, almost all women, are, when they say, no, I haven't been diagnosed, but I suspect something's up, they have a hormone out of range. They have a diagnosable condition. It goes to show that a woman's intuition in terms of her well-being is on point. And I think that then when we look at the fact that every woman could be exposed to something different, you could ostensibly be healthy and still struggle to conceive. You could ostensibly have no gynecological conditions or no real things, no hormones out of range, and yet you still might struggle because of the stress environment that you're in or because of key determining factors. Obviously not going there in terms of partner, because it could always be the guy's fault. And you can't underestimate that. It's 50-50. But I think if you wanted to do it, it's better to do it earlier rather than later. Your egg quality is obviously better and it deteriorates as you get older. It's better when you're younger.
And define younger, like is that under 30?
Again, though, I think it depends on, your skin. There's some 30-year-olds. I don't want to pigeonhole to be like, oh, you're too old now. Because, I had my first child at 35, then another at 36, and I had no problems there. And I think that's fine for me, because I was able to assess what my reproductive health looked like. There's some, like I mentioned, there's some 28-year-olds who, if they'd waited until they were even 30, would probably never have had the chance to conceive naturally.
So it's actually really nothing. Like, I think what they do is try, like, when I say they, the fertility industry is quite like...
fall apart after 35.
Yeah. But it's actually know what's going on in more detail to be able to make the decision if that's an investment that makes sense for you.
It's just every woman is individual to themselves. And this is one of the key things why I can't understand why every single woman wouldn't do a test, because we're all different. And everyone assumes that they are healthy, and everyone assumes that they are not the 1 in 6 couples that are infertile. But it's 1 in 6 are infertile. Why roll the dice?
What would you say are some of the other key considerations that someone should ask themselves when it comes to deciding, like once they've got a picture of their hormones, and if they think actually, yeah, do you know what? I'm not in a position to have a kid right now and I would love to try and preserve my fertility. What are some of the other key considerations or things to think about when it comes to investing in your fertility?
First things first, I would say if you are planning on doing an egg freezing journey and you've done your fertility test and you've gotten your results, there's a huge, huge emphasis on taking care of your body before that journey. You want your eggs to be in optimum quality. You are at a point where you can actually impact your egg quality in a way from lifestyle factors. That meaning, eat well, don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol. Like it is the three. So for women, it's you know that 3 months beforehand is really important
before you freeze eggs.
For women, it's slightly longer, but for men, the male sperm cycle is 3 months. So the man, whatever about anything else, if a man wants to if you want to have a baby, you want to make sure your partner for 3 months before is as clean as you are, because it's a complete misnomer that it's all on the woman. It's actually not.
Oh, that's so weird and like off-brand for the whole medical industry. Strange. Really weird.
How strange, yeah. It's all on the woman.
How strange.
And so for a woman as well, you know, cut out the alcohol. Have be holier than thou, pure as you can be.
No caffeine, I'm imagining.
You know, I think like caffeine, I would say, I'm not here grinding up coffee and snorting it. Like I really kind of question about the pulling back. Now I'm not the scientist, so don't call me out on that at all. But I think like you just be mindful of the process. Be mindful of looking after your body. Be mindful of and the reason I say that is because so often we will see people who they're saying, I can't understand, I have such a healthy lifestyle. I've, kale smoothies Monday to Friday, but it's ketamine on Saturday. So, it's like
classic.
The balance of shining your halo on Monday to Friday. Funny. And then the weekend, it's like...
So weird, I did an acid tab, but like, I don't know why my eggs aren't freezing properly. Yeah.
Or the number of people who are doing drugs while they're actively trying to conceive. It's staggeringly high. And vaping, we say no vape, no grape.
Okay, yeah, love it. So basically, looking after your body and investing in your health is a really clever way.
Pre-conception care.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's the same if you're going to go and invest in egg freezing, right? Like it's like
exactly
prepare your body for that.
Prepare your body for the egg freezing as you would prepare your body for a pregnancy. Just what would be the harm of making sure that you're in as healthy position as possible before you go through that process?
Okay. And also, if someone's in a relationship and they're thinking, I do think I want to have kids with the person that I'm with, would you say investing in freezing embryos is better than getting your eggs frozen? Is there like any way to think about, because generally when you get to the IVF stage, it's more expensive, and I guess the chances of eggs...
IVF should be avoided at all costs.
Okay.
I honestly do. I think this idea that the corporate world has brought in to say, we'll freeze your eggs for you. Just keep working through your fertile years.
I actually did want to ask you about that.
This to me is the kind of slightly underhand, corrupt thing to be like, this is a great benefit. Why don't you freeze your eggs, but just keep working through your fertile years? We'll pay for you to have IVF. Just keep working. Just don't step off, don't have a baby, because we're going to pay for you to have IVF. That, I think there's something really wrong with that.
It's so interesting to hear you say that.
This is why we provide it as a benefit in workplaces, because I think... instead of saying, hey, we'll pay for you to have IVF or we'll pay for you to freeze your eggs, companies should be saying, hey, we'll pay to prevent you ever needing IVF. We'll pay to help you monitor your egg reserve, help you, doing a fertility test annually. We'll pay for that. Pay for that as a benefit. Pay for you to have your own private gynecologist. But don't say, hey, whatever you do, don't have a baby, because we want to pay for you to do the opposite of that. And yet it seemed to be this amazing benefit.
I still need you to explain more about why you think this is corrupt and bad. Because if I was at a business and they said, we'll pay for your IVF and we'll pay for your egg freezing, I would think, perfect. Because I actually am not ready to have a baby yet.
It's not that it's corrupt. It's not that it's bad. Because I think it's well meant. I think that it is well intended.
No, look, I'm happy to have my mind changed. I just want to understand more about why.
But I think that there's more to it than that. I think the message shouldn't just be that a woman should just keep working at the potential detriment of her health and the potential detriment of her fertility because they're willing to pay for that problem to go away. The reality is that if you are in reproductive decline or if you're in key reproductive years, the answer shouldn't be
avoid having a kid.
Okay, here's the analogy. We'll pay for you to have chemotherapy. We will not pay to screen you for cancers. There's something about it to me.
It's paying for the problem rather than preempting it.
Exactly. And it underestimates the fact that IVF is incredibly invasive, physiologically, biologically, psychologically, financially. It impacts the person that goes through it in the most profound way, and it impacts their partner and it impacts their coworkers. How is that seen as a solution? That should be something we say, we should pay for you to avoid ever needing to go through that, because that's really difficult.
What about people who know that they're not ready to have a baby yet? And I guess what would you say to someone that knows they want to be a mother, wants to invest in their fertility, maybe have done their screening and they see what's going on and they're aware that actually maybe they're not in the most ideal
that's
position.
Most women. That's so many women, and I think like it's impossible for me to have the answers. The only thing that I can say, because like I can see a load of people being like, "Oh, that's all very fine, but I've got a shitty boyfriend, or I've got no finances, or that's all very fine," and I can't sit here and say what I think any woman should do, because that's not my place. All I can sit here and do is say we've built something that arms you with the appropriate tools to be as proactive about your reproductive health as possible. With that information is up to you. Whatever you do next and whatever you do with that is up to you. But know that we've created something that helps you along the way in as much as we can possibly do.
Because I do think when you don't know something, it's much scarier. It's almost like, if I liken it to when I was in my incredibly avoidant financial phase, which may or may not have slipped back into recently. I avoid my accounts. I don't want to look at them because I'm so scared about what I'm going to see in this. But as soon as I look at them and I know what's going on, I actually feel the anxiety dissipate. But it is you need the courage to look at what the reality is to be able to make a decision about how you then spend your money. And it's the same thing with your fertility. If you don't have the clear picture, you can't make a decision. It also might be
bad news,
I might that you go, say I've got 20 million in my account.
There's so many people that come to us and being like, "Oh, it was such a weight off my mind," because I was like, "I'm fine." That's the reality is that like we can talk about the doom and gloom and the far end situations or the worst case scenarios, but for so many women, they say, "Jesus, why didn't I do that sooner? It's a weight off my mind. What a relief. I'm actually perfectly fine. I'm really healthy. Everything's in range." That's actually the reality for so many women. Or to say, "Wow, actually I wasn't wrong. I do have something that is definitive. I do have a reason." Like for PCOS, so there was a woman who at an event came up and hugged me and Helen, and she said, "Oh my God, thank you. I did a fertility test and I got a PCOS diagnosis." And we were like, "Sorry." And she was like, "No, I can't explain to you. I've spent years, nearly a decade, trying to get answers, and I've been medically gaslit. I've been told you just need to lose weight. And PCOS is a metabolic condition. It's really difficult." So for a lot of people, getting that answer or diagnosis isn't scary. It's a complete relief because they've been gaslit their whole life, and it's like someone being like, "No, you're right. Your symptoms are real. Your pain is valid."
Yeah. Okay, I would like to put a question to you. So I'm really hoping that the person oh my God, he's kind of my boyfriend. I can't even believe it. It's so weird. I haven't been in a relationship for a really long time, but I really hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. However, we've been dating for a grand total of 3 months. Yeah. So obviously a really long time. I'm obviously convinced I'm not going to avoid my hormones any longer. I'm going to be getting my fertility test. Can't wait. What if it comes back and says, you actually probably need to hop, skip and jump into the bedroom and make a baby ASAP? What do I do? That's a really confronting thing, especially either if you're single or in an early relationship.
And it's the reality for so many people. That's why I always talk about the life arithmetic of like adding up how much time you have left, how long you can wait before it's weird to bring up a conversation with someone that you've only just met. And I think that there isn't a single answer. Only you can really know what's right for you. Only you can know.
I really hate that you're doing the therapist thing where it's like all the answers are inside of you.
I can't, because again, this is, I was saying, the comment section is where I go to die, because I feel like everyone's got an opinion, because everyone's got a story. So everyone's hurting in some way. So you might say something that really cuts against the grain for them. And bear in mind, oftentimes our audience is someone, it can range from someone who's just high-fiving their ovaries, or someone who's just wants to check in on their hormonal acne, to someone who's had multiple baby loss. And so like the tone of voice you use and the language that we use, we're really, really careful with that. But we are dealing with hormonal women, understandably so. And our hormones are not just a bad thing, they're a great thing. But the reactions you will get from people, because you just don't know what secrets people have, or what people are going through, or how people have suffered already. It makes it really hard to determine and make a decision and say, this is what you should do, because only you know what's good for you.
Oh God, okay. I'm going to get my test.
Who is this guy? What's he like?
He's really cool. I really like him.
Have a baby.
He's so great. But we had a lunch the other day, and his friends came around with their baby. It was just like one of those scenarios where you're like, oh God, I can't imagine how that sinks into my existing life, which I know it's the whole,
no, I know.
You're never going to know, but
you can't. And that's because your brain physiology changes when you become pregnant and when you have a baby, and so does your partner. So you can never know. And I often think, and I often think that my views are actually kind of controversial on this, and I wait for the time where someone's going to absolutely rugby tackle me with the views of babies are a great thing, and it's tragic if people can't have them and they want to have them, and that's the situation what we want to help to avoid. But so many people are fed with this narrative of, well, I don't even know if I want to have babies, or I don't even know if I should, and they're propelled by maybe someone else's voice. I met a woman, and she was actually in her late 20s, and she said, no, none of my friends, we've all said none of us are going to have babies, because travel and career in our life is just too important to us. I was like lost for words that it could be this kind of almost, group decision approach, when your hormones can change and fluctuate to the point where, even in terms of like ovulation, where you will want it more or want it less, but you'll never actually truly know what a heart explosion it is to hold your own baby in your arms. And I think to make a decision so categorically, it's like saying, I'll never listen to music again, but you've never listened to the best song of your whole life. It's like saying, I don't like music, but you haven't heard it play. You haven't seen how it makes you dance. You haven't heard, the absolute rhythm that it can bring to your life. And it's a totally different rhythm, and it's a different dance for sure, but it's a great one.
I mean, I see a lot of child-free content online as well. And I must say, as a 34-year-old woman who has been single for a long time, it's actually quite a relief to see that you can have a really amazing, successful, full life, whether you have kids or not. And I think that it's a really nice alternative to you're a failed woman who's going to have 50 cats when you're 50 if you don't have children. So it's so
unfair. Like, it's so unfair. Women have this huge pressure on them all the time, to just have this higher degree of living than male counterparts ever are expected to. It's just highly unfair. And
I agree. And I think that there's people who just categorically know they've never ever wanted a child. They don't look at kids and think they're cute, and they just know it's not for them. Yeah. And then there's people who aren't sure. But I think I personally appreciate the child-free content, because it makes me feel like I'm not going to be a failure if I don't, because I don't think
women should ever be seen to be a failure for what decision they make in their life. Men aren't. But we don't say a man is a failure because he's decided to go child-free. We don't say, and yet for women, we're held against this different bar.
But it's even, I guess for me, like as someone who knows, I would love to be a mum. Like I always have known that. And I actually really explored it within myself a few years ago, where I was thinking, is this a societal conditioning, or do I really want this? And I really do want it. But it's also,
and that's okay too. I think it's become unfashionable to say that you want to be a mother. It's become unfashionable to like coo over a baby, or to be broody, and actually it's hormonally quite expected that you would feel like that, and it's innate oftentimes, and it seemed to be somehow uncool now. And that's why when this 20-something-year-old told me that none of us are doing it, it was like this statement of like solidarity that was so unbased in truth, that I just thought, Okay.
And I guess for me, it's like there's the decision to not, right? But then there's also someone like me, say 3 months ago. It's not a decision. I would love to, but I wasn't with anyone. So, you know, I would love to be a mum, but I can't financially afford to do that on my own. I also don't think emotionally I could do that on my own. So there are also people that are sort of forced into the idea of being child-free because then they're not fertile, or they don't have a partner, or they don't have the money, or for whatever reason. But I think all of this comes down to like invest in getting the full picture so you can decide what you want to do. Because it might also be that you're 34 and you're not investing any time into dating because you love your career. But if you knew that your fertile years were perhaps less than you thought, you might actually be prioritizing downloading Hinge and going on some dates and meeting somebody. For anyone that would like to find out more about what you're doing, obviously order their fertility test.
Yeah, we've got loads of resources. We've got loads of webinars that we publish. We've got loads of information. You know, honestly, if you wanted to assess whether egg freezing is right for you, we've done loads of egg freezing webinars and seminars and education sessions. So like, you know, tune into our socials, you know, look us up on YouTube. We're educators. We're a team of researchers and scientists, and educating women is the key thing. It isn't, I don't think anyone should be expected to dive into the deep end without doing their research and reading about it. So we've got a knowledge center on the website with loads of resources, and, you know, take your time with it. They've been put together by a really excellent team, and learn about it, get comfortable with it.
Thank you so much, Dee, for coming in. I know that you're unbelievably busy, and all of the knowledge and everything you shared. Also, it's just so obvious how passionate you are about solving this problem, and we need people like you to actually be the pioneers in the space, because so many of us are just so unaware. And when you don't know something, I just think we're all at such a disadvantage. So thank you for all the work that you do and for coming on the podcast, and we will hopefully have you on again sometime soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking with your friends about your salaries, all of that stuff.
And if you like what you heard, we would love if you could please hit subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode.
And it only takes 1 second, and it would really make our week, our month, our year.
Yeah.
So please do it. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Okay, quickly, The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalised investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.